The mistake that changed everything. The galaxy, a vast expanse of stars and systems, was a place of constant conflict and evolution. Some races thrived, their technological advancements shaping the future, while others fell into ruin, their legacies lost to time. Among the many species, humans were a curious anomaly. They came from a world known as Earth, a planet scarred by millennia of war and environmental destruction, yet capable of profound beauty and resilience. Their civilization had struggled, fractured, and rebuilt itself repeatedly, but they had one thing no other species could match: an unrelenting drive to survive. Humanity's homeworld was classified as a death world by the rest of the galactic community, a planet so hostile that only the most capable, the most adaptable, could hope to survive. They had endured natural disasters, devastating wars, and constant upheaval, all while clinging to life and refusing to let go. When the galaxy first discovered Earth, it was not with hope, but with skepticism. What could such a primitive species offer? The answer, as it turned out, was far more than anyone expected. At first, the humans seemed no different from the countless other species that inhabited the galaxy. A race of intelligent beings with remarkable potential, but nowhere near as advanced or as dangerous as the ancient powers that had once dominated space. The humans were still struggling to build peaceful alliances, their world divided by territories, nations, and ideologies, most of which led to conflict rather than cooperation. But, as the galaxy soon learned, never underestimate humanity. The first contact between humans and the Galactic Union occurred after centuries of speculation. Scientists had speculated that humans would either be a fleeting spark of potential or a species destined to collapse under their own weight. But humanity's first official appearance was unexpected. A diplomatic mission sent to initiate peaceful relations with the Galactic Union was met with surprising civility. The humans were not what many expected. They were not brutal, nor were they dominated by greed and war. In fact, they were surprisingly polite. For a species that had endured constant conflict, they greeted their alien counterparts with open hands and honest intentions. And yet there was an underlying fear beneath their warm gestures, a fear that remained hidden, but was palpable in every conversation, every interaction. The humans, it turned out, had never expected to be welcomed. They feared that the galaxy might see their world's violent history and decide that they were nothing more than conquerable prey. When the first contact mission returned to the Union, they reported that humanity, despite its turbulent past, was a peace-loving species, eager to form alliances and make peaceful connections with others. But they were also cautious. War had been a constant throughout human history, and they carried the scars of it. Despite their friendly behavior, the humans seemed to be preparing for something. The galaxy wasn't blind to this fact. Humans had a knack for adapting quickly, and their curiosity was legendary. The first contact team was puzzled by humanity's behavior, open yet cautious, eager yet wary. No one thought much of it when one of the team's interns accidentally left behind a computer. It wasn't even a new device. It was an old relic, a dusty thing full of outdated designs and archaic FTL drive mechanics. But what the Galactic Union didn't know was that it wasn't just a computer, it was a time bomb. A Pandora's box that would alter the course of the galaxy forever. For several cycles, that computer sat in storage, mostly forgotten by the Union. The files it contained weren't classified, and its primitive FTL designs didn't seem groundbreaking. There were even weapon designs, but no one took them seriously. The intern had left behind primitive military blueprints, nothing that suggested a significant leap forward. It was only a matter of time before it would be deemed irrelevant. Humanity, after all, hadn't yet even begun to develop the hyper-advanced weaponry of other galactic powers. They were decades away from that kind of technology, right? For most of the galaxy's leaders, the humans were a fascinating species with potential, but they were not a threat. That is, until the unintended gift was finally discovered. Human curiosity had always been both their greatest strength and most dangerous flaw. The interns, the researchers, and even the civilians, when a challenge presented itself, humans would meet it head-on, no matter how impossible it seemed. They had always found a way to solve problems, to push the boundaries of what was possible. And this was no different. Humanity's first discovery of the gate drive was revolutionary. A technology that combined two impossible elements: the ability to open a portal, a gate between two distant points, and the ability to travel faster than light. To most galactic scientists, it was absurd. Physics didn't support it. But the humans, fearless in their drive to conquer the unknown, had made it work. Gate technology was now a reality. And then came the weaponization. A human engineer, unnamed in the files, had devised a way to integrate the gate drive with FTL technology, creating a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. At first, this was discarded, outlawed by human authorities who feared the consequences of such power. But there was always someone eager to experiment, someone who thought they could harness the energy of the forbidden technology. They were wrong, of course, but the results were catastrophic. It was the Galactic Union's oversight, their complete underestimation of humanity, that had led to the unintentional gift left behind on that computer. And now, the galaxy would have to pay the price for not taking humanity seriously. The unintended awakening. The Galactic Union had never truly expected humanity to be anything more than an oddity, a curiosity among the stars. They had barely grasped the reality that the human species had come from a death world, a planet where survival was an ongoing battle against nature, war, and disaster. What the Union didn't understand was the human spirit, their boundless drive to survive, adapt, and thrive no matter what. The history of humanity was one of chaos and destruction, but out of that chaos had risen a species that was capable of far more than anyone could have imagined. The computer left behind by the human intern had quietly passed from one set of hands to another in the Galactic Union, its contents largely ignored. It was a relic, nothing more than a throwaway device, filled with archaic data and outdated designs. The primitive FTL drive designs it contained weren't considered revolutionary. Most of them seemed like a work in progress, something unsophisticated that humanity would need decades to perfect, if ever. The weapon blueprints that came with it were similarly dismissed as ineffective, especially given how primitive they appeared compared to other galactic powers. The Union's complacency had been their greatest mistake. In the months following the computer's initial neglect, humanity's resourcefulness was once again underestimated. The computer was passed around in the Union's research teams without much thought. The fact that it had been a gift of sorts was almost forgotten. When the Union representatives first reviewed the information from the intern's computer, they saw only a handful of half-complete designs. Nothing more than a curiosity. Nothing that could pose a threat. That was before humanity decided to open Pandora's box. The humans' desire to advance never ceased. They were always seeking the next challenge, the next step forward. The older FTL designs, initially considered too slow, were now viewed in a new light. Human engineers had cracked the code, their instincts honed by a lifetime of survival and ingenuity. They worked tirelessly to understand and perfect the designs, improving and adapting them with each iteration. And when they finally put their minds to it, they created something that had never been seen before, a hybrid of the gate drive and FTL technology. The gate drive, a technology once thought to be impossible, was the key. It allowed for near-instantaneous travel across vast distances by creating a shortcut through space itself. The humans had managed to merge this insane concept with FTL drives, a propulsion technology that allowed ships to travel faster than the speed of light. The result? A weaponized hybrid, capable of reaching distant galaxies in the blink of an eye, and then unleashing unimaginable devastation. This was humanity's gift, given to the galaxy without warning. It didn't take long before the Galc, the reptilian race that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, realized that humanity had created something impossible. They were initially hesitant, still dismissive of the humans. They considered their new power more of an interesting anomaly than a genuine threat. But then, the granite hammer was used for the first time, and everything changed. The granite hammer was humanity's ultimate weapon, and it came out of nowhere. When humanity used it against the Galc warships, the results were instantaneous and devastating. The Galc's advanced technology, once thought to be unbeatable, shattered under the force of the granite hammer. It was as if space itself had bent and broken around the humans' technology, creating rifts that reduced entire fleets to dust. The first test had been successful. The Galc warships, faster and stronger than any of the Union's fleets, crumbled before the humans. The Galc had never known a force like this. The galaxy, once so certain that the Galc were the dominant force in the universe, now found itself looking in horror as humanity shifted the balance of power. The Union, who had once viewed humanity as little more than a curiosity, now began to realize what they had unleashed. This was no longer just about a single species or even a single weapon. Humanity had unlocked the potential for unfathomable destruction, and no one knew how to control it. There were no more peaceful negotiations. There was no more time to worry about treaties or alliances. The granite hammer was not just a weapon. It was a tipping point. It didn't matter that humanity hadn't intended to use it in the first place. The moment the weapon was unleashed, it was too late for apologies. In the wake of their newfound power, humanity found itself at the center of a conflict it hadn't expected. They had been naive in their attempts to understand the galaxy and its players, but they were also shrewd enough to know that their survival meant adapting to this new reality. The Galc, who had once believed themselves to be the supreme power, were now in retreat, their forces decimated by the granite hammer. But humanity's role had only just begun. They had proven their worth, but they hadn't yet realized how much had been left in their wake. The weapon they had created was only the beginning. They had unleashed a force they could no longer control, and that would change the way the galaxy viewed them forever. As humanity began to learn how to harness their new weapon, the galaxy began to understand one key truth: humanity was no longer to be underestimated. The Union, the Galc, and every other species in the galaxy would have to learn that humans were not just survivors. They were masters of creation, destruction, and everything in between. But the true cost of their gift was just beginning to unfold. The granite hammer was just the start. Humanity had now become the most dangerous force in the galaxy, and they were willing to use that power however they saw fit. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had a way of turning mistakes into miracles. The price of power. The granite hammer had torn through the Galc warships like a comet through a cloud of stardust. A weapon so potent that the Galactic Union, which had long prided itself on its technological and political supremacy, now found itself in a position it had never anticipated, struggling to comprehend the force that humanity had unleashed on the galaxy. What was initially meant to be a gift from humanity had quickly become a curse, one that threatened to ripple across the galactic fabric in ways no one could predict. As the dust settled from the first skirmish, humanity was left standing not as victors, but as a force that had upended the natural order of galactic power. What had once been a predictable galaxy of empires, alliances, and treaties had now been fractured. Humanity, with all their flaws, ambition, and ingenuity, had set the galaxy on fire, igniting a firestorm of possibilities that no one, including the humans themselves, were fully prepared for. Humanity had always been resilient. From their brutal history of war, famine, and struggle had emerged a species that knew how to survive against the odds. But survival wasn't enough anymore. Now, humanity had become a force of reckoning. The first challenge they faced was dealing with the moral implications of the granite hammer. The weapon, once designed as a means of survival, had now turned into a tool of unprecedented power. When humanity unleashed it, they had never anticipated the scope of destruction it would cause. Not just for the Galc, but for the entire balance of power in the galaxy. What once seemed like an inevitable loss had turned into an uncontrollable flood of opportunity and danger. Humanity had won a battle, but they hadn't yet realized the war had just begun. Humanity's burden of power. The Galactic Union had once been a body of collective peace, a gathering of the most advanced species, each proud of their technological achievements, their historical legacies, and their dominance in their respective corners of the galaxy. But now, the Union was fragmented. Humanity's involvement in the destruction of the Galc warships had upset the status quo, and several factions within the Union began to question humanity's motives. Many species, who had once viewed humanity as a primitive, if resilient, race, now looked at them with fear. Fear of their capabilities. Fear of what they had done. Fear of what they might do next. But humanity was not alone in the galaxy, and the galaxy wasn't simply going to watch and wait. The Galc, though devastated, were not gone. They were wounded, their fleets shattered, but their xenophobic rage was far from extinguished. If anything, the humiliation they had suffered at the hands of the Granite Hammer had driven them to even greater extremities. The Galc, having tasted defeat at the hands of humanity, now swore vengeance. Their retaliation was inevitable. Their desperation was palpable, and it would take a lot more than a Granite Hammer to hold them off for long. The Union's response. The Galactic Union was fractured, but still, it was a massive force that could not simply be ignored. The leaders of the Union convened in secret councils, a mixture of fear and desperation in the air. The power shift was undeniable. Humanity had ascended to a new height, but their rise had come at a terrible price. Was humanity truly ready for this kind of responsibility? Were they capable of maintaining their moral compass in the face of such power? What would they do with the Granite Hammer if the galaxy ever turned against them? These were questions that the Union leaders grappled with, knowing that humanity's rise was dangerous and yet irresistible. The Union could no longer rely on its traditional military might. If they wanted to defend themselves, they would need to form a new kind of alliance, one that involved humanity. But humanity wasn't so easily swayed. They weren't interested in bending to the will of others, especially after the unintended consequences of the Granite Hammer. They had acted in self-defense, but now they were faced with the reality of what their creation meant. They were no longer simply defending themselves. They were active participants in the galactic power struggle. Humanity's response was clear. They were no longer willing to stay on the sidelines. Humanity's future, a path of uncertainty. Despite the shifting tides of power, humanity's leaders weren't blind to the consequences of their own actions. The creation of the Granite Hammer had altered the very fabric of their identity. It was no longer just about survival or defending their people. Now they had to ask themselves, what kind of power were they going to wield? It was a question of identity, of values. Humanity, for all its advancement, was still a species formed in the fires of war. Their long history had been defined by conflict, by constant pushes to expand, to dominate, and to survive. But the creation of the Granite Hammer forced them to ask, was this the future they wanted? Would they use their new power to build a better galaxy, or would they descend into the same darkness that had plagued them in their past? The Granite Hammer's shadow. As humanity considered their next steps, the Granite Hammer's shadow loomed over them. It was a creation that held the potential to reshape the galaxy, but also the capacity to destroy everything they had worked for. With the Galc warships destroyed and their fleets decimated, humanity had proven their might. But it was not the might they feared. It was the burden of their power that weighed heavily on their leaders and their people. Would they be the galaxy's saviors, or would they become the next conquerors? The answer was still uncertain. Humanity had the potential to either heal the galaxy's wounds or plunge it into another war, a war they would inevitably lead. The truth was, they were unprepared for the magnitude of their own creation. The Granite Hammer was a tool of unimaginable power, but like all power, it came with a price. Humanity now had to ask themselves, how far were they willing to go? As the Union tried to grapple with this, humanity's leaders understood one undeniable truth. They had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The galaxy would never see them the same way again. Humanity was no longer just a survivor. They were a force that would shape the future of the stars. The question remained, how would they wield that power?